Let's hear what Deontay said today from the locker room, Folsey, shall we?
We shall.
The idea that you can't take anybody lightly, is that something that you guys learn even more after the way that the game on Sunday played out?
I feel like, I don't know, I felt like that the whole week. Like, once we got out there, I just felt like something was different. Like, we wasn't at our best or whatnot, but I feel like we just took them lightly than we should have. Like I said, we can't come in this Thursday with the same mindset. We're going to be fine. We move past it. We looking forward to this week. We're getting ready to work today.
If you come into the game on Thursday and you sense that something feels different again, what do you do to make sure that stops, that feeling goes away?
That would be a moment you got to bring everybody up, have that talk. You know what I'm saying? That's got to get everybody going in the right mindset, and, which I'm sure everybody going to come in with a different mindset this week. Not talking negative about us or whatever, but like we know what we did last week. Now we just got to capitalize on it.
Strikes me as being ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They're not good enough to take anyone lightly.
That's the whole thing.
And shame on them if they did. And, if they come in, the question, you come in this week, you sense something different. Talkin's going to fix that. You're playing to win a division.
Are these players?
You're playing to win
Yes.
a division. You don't take anybody for granted. They all count as a win. You beat Baltimore, it's the same as beating, at least in the one-loss record, as beating a 2-10 Arizona team. I find that
In fact,
ridiculous.
if anything, you should look at that 2-10. You should have looked at the schedule and say, all right, let's dig in, guys, right? We got an opportunity here at home against teams we need to
That
beat because we're
stink.
better than.
Right.
And that's not taking it lightly. That's saying the truth. But if you go into it thinking, it doesn't matter.
We just got to show up.
We just got to show up.
Don't
They
have to be
stink.
on our
They'll
P's and
lose.
Q's.
That's terrible.
Don't
They
pay
barely
attention to
beat
details.
Tennessee.
I
They
know.
barely beat Cleveland with a rusty Deshaun Watson. They barely win these games against terrible teams.
How do you take
But-
anybody lightly?
But the real story here, it's what Jim Rome said about the Jaylen Warren comments the other day. Can you imagine anything more aggravating to Mike Tomlin having your players say we took the other team lightly? As Rome said, check out Jaylen Warren after the game, casually admitting they weren't really prepared and didn't take the Cardinals seriously enough. Can you imagine Tomlin, something aggravating him more than one of his guys, saying, yeah, we didn't take him seriously enough, because that's the greatest indictment ever against a coach, and Tomlin is all about that.
I agree.
All about that.
Totally.
No way would we ever take the field anything short of 100% prepared. What are these guys doing? What are they talking about?
I don't know, but I mean, you can say it all you want, but you got to follow through with it. If you're a player and a coach, you can't. And if they're. He said all week he felt that. That was interesting to hear that.
Yeah, Mason
all
Cole
week.
said he thought they had a great week of practice.
Yeah, so
I don't know. I guess different people
Then again,
looking at it.
Deontay
Well, that's
doing
three
a
now who have said that they
celebratory
took him
dance
lightly.
after an insignificant touchdown says a lot about him.
Well, that's a different subject, but
No,
there's
I
no
mean,
question.
if that's how he thinks, or I don't know. I just first of all,
They're
if you-
not good
even
enough
if you
to
feel
take
that
anybody for granted.
you appreciate people's honesty, but do you want to hear that if you're their team?
No.
You don't want to hear that.
No, I agree.
It's
Yeah.
the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, the notion that this football team would take anybody.
Right.
Like I said yesterday, if they had the 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers next on the schedule, they wouldn't be able to take them lightly either. There's more of a chance of somebody taking the here's what everybody needs to know. There's more of a chance of somebody taking the Steelers lightly than the other way around these days.
I agree.
Yeah, they
it's
are
like,
right in the same
look at
boat.
it this way, Joe. People here, maybe not the players, maybe the players after what we're hearing, they look at New England and say, man, this is a win for us. Put it in the win column. What do you think they're saying in New England? We've been struggling. We're going to get well in Pittsburgh. We're going to beat this team. They're not that good.
What are we talking about here? And why are these players saying this? Does it sound like that somehow is reflecting good on them? Like, yeah, we're
But are they
better than we
direct-
showed only because we took them lightly.
Well, how did Tomlin,
why
when
would
he
you
was-
even say it?
Tomlin, when he was asked about that yesterday, flippantly said, well, they're just reacting the way the question was phrased. I don't know. That
No,
just strikes me as
No,
shame on
but
them.
Cam shot it down before the guy was done with his question. Did you take him light? No.
Yeah, so
we
what?
did not. We
Same
did
thing
not.
Fryermuth said. They're
I don't-
paid to.
I don't put any stock behind what Cam Hayward said. Why would I?
So you put more stock behind what Deontay Johnson says?
And behind a guy like Jaylen Warren, what's Jaylen Warren got to lose or got to gain by lying about that?
Can you find Trubisky? from the other day, and why he keeps getting quoted, I don't know. But every time he is quoted, starting from the time he got benched last year, he seems to be indicting the coaching staff every single time.
Was it the?
What did he do this time?
No, just if you could just look for his clips from yesterday. I'm not sure specifically, but I heard the PM guys play it. Maybe the overall question is, are they prepared for these games?
Well, the way
do they think that they're being properly prepared for games, or is it about their mindset, or what?
I don't know.
Because what they're saying, if it's true, would make no sense. Go back to last year. They beat, who was the quarterback for Indy last year when they played them?
Was that Brissett?
No, that was
a couple of
was
years
it Rivers? No.
Matt
Ryan?
Who was
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan, that's what
Late
it was.
stage Matt Ryan. They beat him by a touchdown. Desmond Ridder, they escape with their lives 19-16. They lost to Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown, I think his name was, on their home
That's
field.
right, Anthony Brown, I remember.
They beat Sam Darnold by 1 score. They beat Derek Carr in his last game with the Raiders after he had quit by a field goal on a last-second drive. They beat Tyler Huntley by a field goal on a last-second drive. Now look to this year. They beat Jimmy Garoppolo. Do they always play guys in his final game with a team?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
By 5 points. They beat Matthew Stafford by a score.
Who was hurt? Not 100%.
They beat Beavis and Butthead by 4 points. Jordan Love, just when he was starting to get good, by 4 points.
How do you take anybody?
Yeah,
for
if you're a
granted?
team that's not beating somebody with 40 points every week.
I think it speaks to their mindset that they're a team and an organization that thinks that they're so much more special and so much better than they are. And I pointed to this in a column, Ron.
Would arrogant be the word?
Arrogant. But a lot of us, myself included, for thinking that they're better than they are complicit in that. I heard Tomlin on a radio interview, which is he's really good before the games with Bob Labriola. But the question came from a place of, Mike, how do you grade and rate and acquire players who have such a winning mentality late in games for the weighty moments? Inherent in that question is the idea that the Steelers
are the only team that gets them.
Somehow, or win weighty games. What the hell has anybody on this whole roster won here?
Yeah, nothing.
Anybody.
Nothing.
And that's the shame of it when you consider some of these players they have who've been around for a long time. They want to get to that point.
T.J. Watt has never won a playoff game.
Yeah.
Cam won one and was hurt the other two.
They think they're a huge game for other teams. Pittsburgh Steelers are coming.
Everybody wants
maybe
this.
that
We're
for
the
fan
schedule
bases,
on
that
they circle, right? The game that they circle.
Yes, if it is that, it has more to do with the franchise's decorated history and the fact that they show up in black and gold as the Steelers than it does anything that anybody on this team's done.
Nothing to do with now.
They haven't won a playoff game since when do you start having memories, Bob? When you're 3, 4 years old?
I don't know the answer to that.
Ron, 4 or 5? When was
5.
your first memory?
I don't know.
Mine was probably 6.
Of a football game, you mean, or
of life? Anything?
Life.
Yeah, 5 years old, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
So there's people out there who are 12 years old right now because you give them 5 where they can't remember anything, and then 7 without a playoff win. We have people in this town who are headed into high school, their freshman years, who have no memory of the Steelers winning a playoff game. Yet they have the nerve to think that they lost last week. Some of them do. Some of them believe this, that they lost only because they took the Cardinals lightly. And who are they to do that anyway? I'm done, Ron.
That was a good rant.
We did that whole thing.
I'm done.
We did that whole thing about the Pirates.
Yeah,
right?
but
when
we all
went
fell
20
into
years
that at the beginning of the season.
Without losing, kids in graduated college and never saw a winning team.
But that's the Pirates.
Right.
These are the Steelers, and you literally have kids going into high school who do not remember them winning a playoff game.
And that's why I believe Alex Highsmith, too, when he says they aren't mentally tough enough. That's
the key. That was the key quote of the week.
Not mentally tough enough. And when you hear that combined with we're taking them lightly, that's not a good combination.
I believe it 100%. And they show it. They
look
like
when you fall behind or something happens and you can't overcome, you've got to create your own momentum to offset that. And if you don't, then you would be mentally weak.
Here's the thing, Ron and Bob and Folsey, is something went radically wrong in the preparation for the Cardinals because that was a disorganized
Didn't
football
line up
team.
correctly.
They couldn't even get lined
12
up
men
right.
on the field.
So what was it? Bad coaching? Did they take them lightly? Are they not mentally tough enough? Did they not know that they still had a chance at not only the division but the number 1 seed? If they win that game, they're a game out of the 1 seed. What went wrong here, and who do you blame?
I have to believe that they didn't do anything different in prep than they do for any other game. Tomlin has been doing this for a long time. Whether they weren't on top of the players enough for their details, maybe, I guess. But I can't believe he went into the week saying, well, even subconsciously saying, okay, it's Arizona. We don't have to necessarily do this or this or this.
But we all have bad days
bet-
at the office and bad weeks.
I understand that. But I got to think the prep was the same as it is any other week. Bob?
I would have to agree with that. I don't think he goes in there thinking anything like he makes a point to really bring up the level of the competition. He always does, and I got to believe he does that
All
in practice
coaches
too.
All coaches
But
do that.
so therefore, then it's, do players have a committed enough mindset? Are they too
I don't
comfortable?
want to just blame the players
I'm not.
here.
I'm
That
just-
looked like a disorganized football
And
team.
I'm
They
not
couldn't even get
taking
the
any
right
of that,
guys
but
on the
I'm-
field or get
you're-
lined up correctly.
I understand that. That's part of it. But to hear players say that, how would they know? What happened differently? I'd like to have an expanded conversation with
So
Deontay
would I.
Johnson.
Why
So
does
what is
Alex
it-
Highsmith
What do you
say
mean?
that?
What does that mean? And specifically ask him. If he's going to throw it out, then he's obligated to answer follow-up questions, I think.
And
Right?
Warren threw it out there.
I was listening to the Fryer.
I don't understand what that means. I never did. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean the coaching staff didn't do its job, or that mean that you didn't because you weren't paying attention because you fell into this mindset?
Something somewhere went radically wrong in the preparation for that game.
Every team in this league can win. We've seen it. They got some pretty good players on that team, young players you may not know. But
I listened to Fryermuth, and I thought he came across as a man of reason. He quickly shot down, we didn't take him for granted. And then they said, well, how come the coordinators seemingly in the play calling so good against Cincinnati and back to normal today? And he goes, it had nothing to do with the coordinator and everything to do with the players. The coordinators didn't line up wrong, jump off sides. It's all on the players.
But he said that goes back to the Canada time. He said that. He said it was the same before. It didn't have anything to do with the coordinator, which I definitely don't believe.
Well, my sense in this time, it wasn't about comparing it to the Canada days. It was about we were the ones who screwed up. It wasn't because of our preparation being poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
how do you explain?
It is traceable to the leadership.
There's no doubt.
Ultimately, and there have been so many examples of these kinds of games in the past.
The leadership in this room can't get guys in line. Let's just admit that. It's been that way for years, and I'm not even necessarily blaming them. Maybe with some of these guys, the old leadership. But come on, I would walk into that Steeler locker room, and the place was emanating leadership. I was afraid to act up in the locker room. It was Bettis. It was Faneca and Farrier and Hampton and Smith and Ward.
Don't they have leaders on
Not
this team?
effective ones.
Okay, well, how much of it is their job versus the job of the players themselves versus the coaches? That's a good question to ask, and I don't know what they're not going to give you the answer you're probably looking for.
And for what it's worth, I had a couple of people who are around the locker room all the time and are at these practices and in the locker room tell me that it did feel too loose last week, for whatever that means.
Well, yeah, and then some people will tell you, it's good to have a loose kind of you guys are, I don't know. All I know is that they fail too often in these situations, and they're on the brink of another one potentially with this New England team.
It just didn't look like a team that was locked in. They looked disorganized.
But as your point was earlier, Joe, you said they moved the ball. First couple of possessions, long drive, it's stalled. Next time they move it 79 yards, they get to the goal line, they don't get in. Did they look like they weren't interested then? No. If they would have scored,
that was specific to Pickett's performance, but we're talking about everything here. We're talking about.
I'm saying if the end of that first half changes differently, they get a touchdown.
Right.
They lead. I don't know. I mean, it's game to game with this kind of stuff. But for players just to throw out a word like, we took them like, I want to know, what does that mean? And I would have, if I was there, I would have asked him, what does that mean exactly? You tell me. You brought it up. What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
It just seems like a recurring theme with this team that
Yes.
somebody's always complaining about how we're organized for games, about our mindset, about all the blank going on, like Najee said a couple weeks ago. Why is it like that?
That's a reflection of the coaching.
I think so.
I agree. It is. And you have to stop it. If it exists, you have to stop it. And if you don't stop it, it's just like anything else. People will do it. You feel emboldened to do it again. People go out and rob stores and just walk in and take stuff. If you don't discipline them and do something about them, they're going to do it again because it's a green light situation.
And here's a guy who literally quit. Why is he the spokesman?
Yeah,
Here's a guy who literally quit the week before saying, I felt like we took him lightly.
If you would have thought, if he, of all people, he's the one who shouldn't be mentioning anything.
Well, he's not the only guy, though, that's saying this.
There are only two of them
I
that
know,
I know of,
but
he and Warren.
he's
They're
the
only two
last
I've
guy
heard.
who should be saying anything like that, even if he believes it.
You're right.
I think.
Is he responding to the question and speaking the truth in his mind? Whether, you want to criticize him for what he said, the question was asked, did you take these guys lately? And if he believes that they did, I'm going to give him credit for honesty, even if I think it's ridiculous.
This is what we want out of these guys, right?
But again, I want a further explanation.
No, I want him not to quit during games.
You have to tell me what that means.
I'm talking about in the
I don't trust his judgment of whether anybody else was mentally into it. He's, in fact, the last guy on the team whose judgment I would trust if he's appraising whether anyone else on the team was into it.
Fine.
That's a guy who was so oblivious, he was celebrating a touchdown when they were down to the Arizona Cardinals.
I hear you on him.
What
What about Jaylen Warren?
I don't think he has any idea what's going on. Now, Warren, I put way more stock
Yes.
into.
Jaylen Warren doesn't have any kind of agenda. What has he got to gain by lying about not trying hard enough or taking them lightly? I think he's just telling it how he sees it. And he's the ultimate effort guy.
He is. There's nobody who gives more effort than Jaylen Warren.
Charlie Batch somewhere said, I'm reading a headline now from Steelers Depot, that he believes the Steelers, quote, started reading their own press clippings after win over Bengals.
Oh, my gosh.
That's an old phrase. I don't know. I don't know that they pay any attention. Maybe on social media they're getting patted on the back.
all they did was beat the Bengals JV team, barely.
With a quarterback who certainly didn't play like he did last night.
By 6 points.
Right.
And they only scored 16.
If they did, maybe
again.
here's the ultimate truth. If they did suddenly believe they were good, then they really are delusional.
Yeah, I mean, you
But
can't
then
believe
again,
it.
we had a guy celebrating in the end zone when they were down 2 touchdowns.
That was a gimme touchdown. They didn't even care.
This is a disaster, Ron. Isn't
Well,
it?
A disaster would be doing the same thing, rinse and repeating against New England and coming away with a 6-3 loss.
What are we going to say if they lose?
I'm not sure a disaster wouldn't be a 6-3 win.
What are we going to say on Friday if they lose to this team? And New England's defense is good enough to beat them.
What are we going to say if they beat Bailey Zappi, Jake Browning, and Gardner Minshew? That Mike Tomlin's the coach of the year? Because I guarantee a lot of people will. I won't be impressed with any one of those wins. None.
If they win 3 more, they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoffs?
Would you be impressed? I wouldn't.
Depending on how the game.
By the way, did you guys feel on another topic that there were so many injuries? Every week there are more and more and more. And I wonder about 18 games. You're struggling to get to 17. And you end up with this, what you just described, Joe, all these backups in key positions. The Steelers are now putting Blake Martinez and they're bringing back Miles Jack and whomever else can play inside.
I'm with Terrell Austin, who said today nobody gives a crap when he was asked about.
No, I'm saying I don't like 18 games. I never did. I don't like 17. I think I'd rather go to 14.
That's Tomlin's favorite. No one cares about our problems. They're glad we have them.
Here was Freiermuth via Steelers Live. It's very frustrating about the not being able to line up properly in a football game. We've had the same formations for 3 years now, names of them, and it's pretty frustrating. Who was guilty on those? Do we know? We know Chooks was late on one, but lining up outside the tackle, was it?
Yeah, somebody.
Well, that's on a wide receiver. Sometimes they blame it on the offense. It's not Broderick Jones, right? It's a wide receiver.
Now here's Freiermuth again, echoing what these other guys have said, like Highsmith. How do you fix the issues? Study the game plan longer, he says.
I heard him say
my
that.
gosh.
Communicate. Line up where you're supposed to line up. I'm sorry, but if these are issues, I agree with Ron. It all goes back to coaching. You could argue these guys should know how to do that. They should be self-motivated, whatever. He's pointing to a coaching problem there.
Sounds like it. But study your playbook means study your playbook. That to me is an indictment of players.
And isn't it the ultimate irony that they lost to a guy who had to have a
tutor,
spend so much hours on the game plan, Kyler Murray.
Well, this goes back to the idea that they're arrogant, really. If they don't study the playbook, don't feel like they need to be on their P's and Q's.
I think that's a really good word. They think they're better than they are.
Yes. That's the whole point. And so does the national media in reference to the head coach, and I think with the team itself. Hence the word delusion and illusion. And hence the idea that I think it would take a Patriot-like meltdown for this whole mirage surrounding the Steelers to finally be smashed to pieces because they're doing just enough to keep it up.
Yeah, they are. And they're, the way they're going, it looks like, 9-10 wins.
Willie
and
Colon.
while that may be good enough this year to get in, it won't be good enough to do anything beyond
Trey
that.
Essex ripped the coaches, too. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Said, I love Mike T, but to be non-competitive, it's just such a slight blight against him.
I mean, what's the line on number of years without a playoff win? It might go up to 7. Like, where's your line where that's too many? 9, 11, 15, 20?
Double
What is
digits.
it? What's the number? Because 7's a high blanket number.
Yeah.
7.
Again, it goes back to the idea of when some people, when they watch games, there's that little voice in the back of their head saying, maybe this is for the best, that they should just lose this game and have it all crumble so they can actually change things.